going to struggle to lay the pin again now. Is there anyone under us? The hadge on, okay. Can't see the pin though.
Okay, so I know what you're thinking. Best kept secret? That's a wayfarer. We all know what a wayfarer is. What are you talking about? Well, bear with me and I'll tell you why most of you won't appreciate just how good a boat this is to the racing sailor. Let's start with why you've all got the wrong impression. You see, the Wayfarer was designed in 1957 by Ian Proctor. It was designed to be just an all-round cruising boat. And you have to say, in that regard, I suspect it surpassed even his expectations. Over the years, it has proven to be exceptionally seaworthy and has completed some amazing journeys. To be frank, I'm no expert on it. And although I know that, I don't really know any of the detail, but a quick Google search tells me that just a few years ago, 2 guys sailed non-stop around Great Britain. Let me say that again, non-stop around Great Britain in a 15-foot dinghy. It's one of those bucket list items for cruisers in the UK to sail their yachts around Great Britain, stopping at various ports and marinas on the way. To do it in a 15-foot dinghy without stopping doesn't bear thinking about. And then I also find out the guy sailed from London to Helsinki in a Wayfarer dinghy. That's Helsinki, that's the capital of Finland. Google it. That's a long way with some of the world's most treacherous waters in the North Sea and, you're going north. So anyway, it goes to show that the design has proved itself. On a less extreme scale, the Wayfarer Class Association regularly holds rallies and cruises for like-minded people to do less extreme cruises. Having never done one, I can't tell you what they are, but they don't just meet up and sail around a pond, they go places. They have tents on them, they camp on them, they're proper adventures. Even at a smaller scale, the Foxwell family had a Wayfarer a few years ago when Elizabeth was younger. It was just an old one we bought from Medway Yacht Club. We had an outboard on the back, and it was old enough that we didn't have to be too precious about it, so we'd drag it up the beach and so on. And we had some great adventures, going out to Who Fort on the Medway, or even going out to dinner one day. We sailed up the river, docked it alongside a mooring, and took the kids to dinner in Rochester. So like I say, excellent cruising boats. And I hear what you're saying, so what's that got to do with racing? Well, bear with me. You see, the first thing is, I would wager every yacht club in the country, if it hasn't got a Wayfarer now, it's had a Wayfarer in the past. Because, quite apart from everything else, it's an excellent training boat. I'm sure there's more than one of you out there that learnt to sail in a Wayfarer, but that means everyone's first impression is of that beat-up old doggy boat that's done 10,000 miles and hasn't really been cared for, and doesn't sail particularly nicely. And we live in a world where first impressions count, so everyone has this distorted idea of what a Wayfarer really is. So in the early 2000s, Hartley Boats took over the rights to the Wayfarer dinghy, and they commissioned Phil Morrison to do a remake of it. His remit was to make it as fast as the fastest boats, but no faster. Now some people might argue he went a bit too far, because you have to say a modern Hartley Mark IV Wayfarer is a little bit quicker than your average Wayfarer. It's just that the average is dragged down by all those old school boats and so forth. If you compare it to one of the classic old woodies that the long-standing stalwarts of the class would tell you about, there's not so much difference. The real difference is everyone can now buy a fast boat, rather than just the lucky few that got the ones that were built properly. And that's why I think it's the best kept secret. The modern Hartley Mark IV Wayfarer is a fantastic boat. Because they're not lightweight, small boats, they don't have to skimp on materials or the build, so they're built like bricks. They all come out the same moulds, and they're all really well built. I'm sure there'll be the odd sailor out there that's got stories of one thing or another that went wrong with theirs, but generally speaking, you buy a Mark IV Hartley, it'll be well built and it'll be fast. There's no sale numbers to avoid, or buy from this builder and not that builder, or don't buy the ones that have got this feature or that feature. They're all the same and they're all great. And if you are into your racing, they do exceptionally well on handicap. Now, winning on handicap in a handicap fleet shouldn't be your reason for buying a boat, but let's face it, most of us end up racing, handicap racing at some point or another, and it's always fun to be at the sharp end of the fleet rather than the other. And around our way at least, most people will tell you that a Wayfarer is a real bandit on handicap. But what's really good about it is that most bandit handicap boats are bandits in the extremes. It's particularly light winds, so you need a low wetted area and so on. Or it's strong winds and the boat picks up on the plane quickly. Where a Wayfarer is a bandit is in that 4 to 10 knot range, when no one's planing that much, but the long waterline length of the big Wayfarer and all that sail mean it's got plenty of power to push it along. So what it means is, if it is a bandit, it's a bandit in those peachy conditions which, certainly if you sail inland at least, you get most of the time. So as I say, they can do pretty well in handicap racing.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Doesn't matter, I don't know, it just get knocked. Sheet on a little bit harder, Hannah, because we can't
You've
get
got,
it.
I don't, 7
So
seconds.
yeah, he'll have to give way.
So while this racing goes on, although I should point out here, you've probably noticed there's 3 of us in this boat. Class Association says you have to race with a minimum of 2 crew, which means that in our case the whole family can enjoy the boat. But while the race is going on, let's take a quick look inside the cockpit of one. I'm sure you know what a Wayfarer looks like from the outside. It's just a fairly conventional 3-sail traditional boat with a conventional spinnaker and a large main and jib. The cockpit's also pretty conventional. The mast is on the tabernacle, which means that once you get the hang of it, you can raise and lower the mast on your own, because unlike most dinghies, the Wayfarer is so well built you can just climb on board while it's on the trolley and lift the mast up and down. Controls are led to the thwart. What you see there, going from left to right, is the Cunningham, the pole uphaul for the spinnaker pole, and then the kicker, and then the one on the outside of the thwart is an extra control that we've added, which is our rig tension. All Hartleys have adjustable rig tension, but it's generally in the middle, just behind the main sheet block. There you'll also see the spinnaker controls. The helm pulls the spinnaker up and down, the crew does everything else. And then at the back there's a horse for the main sheet. Some of the posher Hartleys have both an adjustable horse, again the controls led back to the cockpit, and they'll have tracks on the spinnaker blocks. We all tend to use knots on the spinnaker sheets to stop the spinnaker going too far forward, and the track allows you to sort of fine tune where the pole ends up against the jib. As you can see, it's got all the important controls, and they really are rigged like proper racing boats. As a side note, you may be wondering why our boat is called Brian's boat. Well, there's a long-standing member of the Wayfarer Association called Brian Lamb. I've no idea how long he sailed Wayfarers, but it was a very long time, and he bought a Hartley Mark IV almost as soon as they came out. In fact, he had 3 or 4 of them over the time, and they were all in this same colour. In fact, I think Hartleys have only made about 5 of the racing boats in this colour, and most of them were owned by Brian. So in all the time that Sam, Hannah and I have been campaigning this boat, people are always coming up to us and saying, "Is that Brian's boat?" And then we'd have to explain the story, how Brian sold it to Sam and moved to West Mersey and so on. And we thought, no, it'd be much easier, we'll just call it Brian's boat. So now when people come up to us and say, "Is that Brian's boat?" we say, yes, yes it is.
What do they do?
They're all just controls on the boat. So the orange one is the kicker, which is the rope that holds the boom up and down. Black and white one holds the pole up and down. And the blue one's the Cunningham, which is the front of the sail, but we're not using that today. So
We have a running joke in the class when we go to events that we should market the Wayfarer as the retirement home for all those other dinghy classes. You know, when being hunched up at the front of the boat for the crew is no longer comfortable, or when hiking really hard because you've got such a powerful boat is no longer fun, or when the gymnastics you need to do to keep the boat upright on some of the more high performance boats when the novelty's wearing thin. Sooner or later, a Wayfarer looks more appealing. And I can tell you, it's only this perception people have of what a Wayfarer is that's stopping you getting it. When you sail one, they're really good fun. They're not fast like a fast boat, but they are big, they're comfortable, they've got seats. You sit in it rather than perched on it. But it's got all the controls you want, everything works really slickly, they're really good fun. In fact, I'll make you this promise. I'm not going to tell you if you sail a Wayfarer you're going to fall in love with it and buy it, but I will promise you, if you find a Mark IV Hartley Wayfarer that you can borrow off someone, go for a sail in it. You might like it, you might not, but I do guarantee you'll come off the water, give the boat back to its owner, and think to yourself, do you know, that was a much better boat than I thought it would be. Oh, and one final thing. You know I said Wayfarer's good on handicap. We ended up winning this race that you've been watching. So I'll finish this with a short film that was shot on someone's mobile phone at the recent Nationals at Paynton. It was blowing 20-25 knots. And most people, including the international 14s and B14s on the other side of Tor Bay, stayed ashore. But the old school boats, that people don't think are trendy anymore, the contenders and the wayfarers, had a great time.
Look at that, it's going almost as quick as a contender.